It's no secret Google Gemini, formerly known as Bard, has had its fair share of stumbles. But it's quietly come a long way, and you'll probably be surprised at what it can now do and do very well. So today, through a series of productivity-focused use cases, I'm going to dive deep into Gemini Advanced to show you every feature you need to know to get the most out of this AI tool. So prepare to level up and let's get right into it. First, for anyone new to Gemini, let's quickly get a lay of the land. The collapsible navigation pane on the left is where you'll be able to start a new chat, access your recent chats and history, settings, gems, and the gem manager. You can think of gems as highly customized versions of Gemini that you can train to be really good at accomplishing a certain task. I'll cover gems later on in the video. Whenever you log into Gemini, you're able to enter your own prompt here. Within the prompt box, you'll have the option to upload files, which we'll see in a bit, and you'll also have the option to dictate your prompt directly into Gemini. And in the near future, you'll be able to leverage Gemini Live, Google's real-time AI chatbot, though at the time of recording, it's only available on mobile. In the top left, you'll be able to choose your model, Gemini or Gemini Advanced, though realistically speaking, you'll always be in Advanced for most situations. Okay, whenever Gemini gives you a response, there's a number of key features that are easy to miss that can really help you home in on your desired results. First, in the top right, you can click Show Drafts, which allows you to view the alternate answers Gemini generated for your prompt. And if you're not happy with either draft, you can click Regenerate Drafts or simply edit your prompt. In practice though, you likely find yourself continuing the conversation with Gemini to nail down what you're looking for. The great thing about Gemini is that it has a pretty large context window, meaning it can remember a ton of information about your conversation to help inform any follow-up questions and tasks you throw its way. Switching to a new chat window, let's say the prompt leads to an answer where Gemini pulls in additional information from sources on the web. You can easily click the drop-down icon to view the source or view all the sources and related content at the bottom of the response generated. This is a great way to keep things in check as all AI chatbots are known to hallucinate, so always verify any mission-critical responses. Also, at the very bottom of the responses, you have the ability to rate them as good or bad. The settings icon allows you to regenerate your response in a number of formats, from longer, shorter, to more casual or professional. Pretty convenient. There's also a number of ways to share the conversations you've had in Gemini. First is by creating a shareable link that anyone will be able to view, even if they don't have a Google account. The second option is to export the conversation to a Google Doc, a great time saver if you've just say drafted a blog and now need to make some final edits. And the last sharing option is creating a draft in Gmail, though as we'll see later on, it's way easier to just draft your email in Gmail if you already have Gemini Advanced. The next button in the bottom row allows you to double-check your responses and is a great safety feature for stuff you need to ensure a high degree of accuracy for. When you click the button, it cross-references the response generated with additional Google searches and flags any areas where the response differs from additional sources reviewed. So anything out of whack here would have been highlighted in orange. Additionally, suggested Google searches are added to the bottom of your response to allow you to further vet Gemini's response, and clicking on one will simply open a new Google search. And the last icon here simply lets you copy the response in its entirety or report any bugs you find along the way. Now, before we dive into the features and practical use cases for Gemini, I'll take a few moments to highlight the settings you need to ensure you have enabled to make the most of Gemini Advanced. First, click into Settings, then Extensions. Here, make sure all the extensions are enabled, and we'll be seeing each one in action throughout the video. Back on the settings pop-up is where you'll find and be able to copy or delete any public links you generated. Okay, next, if there's one area Gemini seems to be excelling over its competition, it is its data analysis capabilities, particularly for large data sets. So for a quick example, here's a CSV dataset with over 50,000 rows of sales data for a sporting goods store. Manually cleaning, processing, and analyzing this data would take hours, if not days, in Excel. However, with Gemini Advanced data analysis capabilities, we're going to extract meaningful insights from this dataset in a matter of minutes. For the sake of time, I'm going to use one encompassing prompt and see what Gemini gives us. So we'll prompt it, "You are an inquisitive senior data scientist for a major retailer with great business acumen. Your task is to extract actionable trends and insights from the attached sales data. Your comprehensive analysis should contain well-thought-out recommendations that can be used by the executive team to continue moving the business forward. And your analysis should contain various charts based on the data to help accompany your insights and recommendations." Gemini then goes on to read and analyze our attached file to give a very comprehensive analysis. There is a lot going on here, so let's start at the very top with the Analysis Complete dropdown. Here, we can see that Gemini analyzed our file alongside our prompt, wrote a ton of code in a matter of seconds, and gave us a final response, which we'll dive into next. Speaking of code, if you are more technically inclined, you can click the Show Code button, which then allows you to view the exact Python code Google Gemini used to extract insights from our dataset. And you're then easily able to copy the code to your own Jupyter notebook or code editor. Now, let's dig into our analysis. I'll hide the code for this so that we can keep things simple, though a ton of code was generated for this, and you can only imagine how much time that would have taken to do manually. Gemini's analysis starts off by giving us an overview of our dataset and then goes on to give us a visual of our monthly revenue trends. The charts generated are really cool, and there's actually a lot you can do with them. First, you can view the data as a table, or even export it to Google Sheets for further analysis. The Customize icon allows you to fine-tune your chart, and you're even able to change the chart type to, say, being a horizontal bar chart, though in this case, the vertical bar chart definitely looks better. This is also where you can modify your chart's title and labels. And once you're happy with your changes, you can simply click Update and have them reflected. And say you wanted to add this chart to a presentation, you can simply download it as an image. A great feature for charts generated here is that you can actually change the zoom level in real time simply by using your mouse's scroll wheel, or two fingers either up or down on your laptop's trackpad. The commentary generated here is actually really good. For example, it lets us know that while the US stands out as the top revenue generator, followed by Australia and the UK, Canada generates the least revenue, but it is crucial to consider its market size and potential before drawing any conclusions. Pretty cool. The analysis then goes on to dive into things such as the product category, sales by gender, and revenue by age group. All really insightful analysis to help this company make decisions. It then goes on to give us some good insights in bullet point format that any executive team can easily digest. And last but not least, we get concrete recommendations, for example, such as to capitalize on the bikes category or focus more on the US market as it is the leading revenue generator. Overall, this is a pretty great analysis that could have easily taken our fictitious data scientists days, and yet here we are in a matter of minutes. Next, whether you're a coding novice or pro, Gemini Advanced in particular has some really good coding abilities. Python does seem to be its forte, though you can also ask it to generate HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and much more. So let's say I was learning to code and wanted to see how I could use Python to build a simple word game. I could ask Gemini to create some code for a basic word game. We then get a well-structured and documented piece of Python code for our game, and it goes on to even give us some recommended enhancements. So let's take our game for a spin. Depending on the code generated, you may or may not be able to run it directly in Gemini. In our case, however, at least at the time of recording, running this particular code for our game by hitting the run button seems not to be possible and returns an error. However, you are able to easily open up your code in a Google Colab notebook by clicking Share, then Export to Colab. For anyone not familiar, Colab notebooks, which are akin to Jupyter notebooks, are pretty much files where you can combine text, images, and executable blocks of code into one place. These notebooks are often used to analyze data or even train machine learning models in a highly visual format and are mainly used by data science professionals to better communicate their work. So let's run our code in our notebook and take our game for a spin. And with one guess to go, I thankfully won my word game. Really fun. And of course, if you know what you're doing, you can further customize the code to your liking. Moving on, let's look at something really fun, generating AI images in Google Gemini. Gemini Advanced image generation capabilities have come a long way and are currently powered by Imagen 3, Google's latest AI image generation model, and I must say this model is incredible. For example, it now does people very well and far better than DALL-E 3. Asking it to generate a photorealistic image of two friends enjoying a coffee in a cozy sunlit cafe, we get this image, which is actually really good. For a quick comparison, let's enter the exact same prompt in ChatGPT and see what we get. As you can see, ChatGPT's image looks far more cartoonish and honestly much creepier than Gemini's generated image. And supposing we wanted to tweak our image, we can simply chat with Gemini until we get our desired image. So for example, we can add it to add a fresh pot of coffee to the table. And then it goes on to give us an image with a fresh pot of coffee. One thing to note here is that character consistency is not yet really a thing in Gemini, meaning even the exact same prompt will always generate different looking images and people. Imagen 3 in Gemini Advanced also does a decent job creating images with text, though from testing it out, it is still far from perfect. Let's ask it to create an image of a billboard in an abandoned town that says "Now what?" And we get back a pretty compelling image. And the interesting thing here is that it actually added a question mark, though my original prompt didn't even include one. Okay, beyond Gemini's crazy good image generation potential is Gemini Advanced AI Vision capabilities. Similar to ChatGPT 4o's model, Gemini Advanced is multimodal, meaning it can understand text, audio, and visual inputs all at the same time. And all of this enables some pretty interesting use cases. I'll quickly jump into 3 use cases for Google Gemini's AI Vision capabilities, though there are plenty more out there to discover. First, let's say you're a budding photographer and need guidance from an experienced photographer to help improve your art. You can use Gemini as your own on-demand critic. We'll let it know that it's a talented photographer with decades of experience and a keen eye for detail. It's hard to impress and provides productive critiques of photos to help budding photographers improve their craft. And then let's ask it to critique our picture. Gemini then analyzes the photo and gives us feedback on our composition and framing and areas of improvement, such as the framing of this image in particular feeling a bit cramped. It also provides feedback on exposure, lighting, and some more technical aspects. And of course, in summary, it correctly identifies that this is a recognizable view of the London skyline. And finishes off with additional tips such as experimenting with different times of the day and researching more architectural photography techniques to learn how to best showcase buildings and structures. Honestly, if I was a photographer, I'd imagine these would be useful skills. Though, just a disclaimer, this was a stock image by an actual photographer. Next, let's use Gemini Vision to generate suggestions based off an image. Let's say this is our apartment and we'd like some help to liven up the space and within a reasonable budget. So we can simply upload an image of our apartment and prompt Gemini to give us some suggestions. So we'll let it know that it's a savvy interior designer with fun and fresh taste with the job of improving this apartment in a budget that's under $1,000. Gemini then goes on to analyze our living room and gives us some key areas for improvement and ideas. First, it lets us know that our space is a bit sparse and impersonal. Ouch! but it is letting us work towards a more cozy, inviting, and stylish look. We then get some suggestions based on the areas it identified, such as items in the living room and workspace. So for example, we could add the floor lamp for about $50 to $100 to enhance the ambient lighting, or add some more plants to bring in some more greenery. In our desks area, it lets us know that it's a bit cluttered. Really, Gemini does not hold back the punches, and that we'll need to invest in stylish storage boxes or baskets to keep things organized and out of sight. Additional tips include adding pops of color, textiles such as rugs and curtains, and of course, personal touches to really make the space your own. This is awesome and a great way to brainstorm for a space you're looking to improve. Okay, the third really fun use case for Gemini Vision is reverse engineering things. Let's say I'd taken a picture of this birdhouse while at a friend's place and would like to build my own. I can simply ask Gemini to make me a beginner-friendly DIY guide for this birdhouse based on the picture alone. Gemini then gives us instructions of how to build the birdhouse and, of course, an accompanying shopping list to make sure we have everything on hand we need to build our new favorite project. I like how Gemini even includes important tips that may be overseen, such as avoiding using treated wood for the birds and, of course, cleaning the birdhouse annually. Overall, reverse engineering can be so much fun and a great way to lose many weekends to the most random DIY projects. Before moving on from Gemini Vision, another cool feature in Gemini is its integration with Google Lens. So supposing I decided not to build the birdhouse myself, I could click the Open in Lens icon, which will do a Google search of similar images, allowing me to find a similar birdhouse that may be for sale. Very, very convenient. Now, let's take a look at all the extensions that are currently available with Gemini Advanced. Extensions allow Gemini to access real-time information from additional sources such as maps, YouTube, flights, and hotels. If you haven't already and are following along, be sure extensions are enabled in settings. The great thing about extensions is that Gemini can automatically pick an extension or multiple extensions whenever it's crafting its response. Though I found sometimes it's still better to call upon the extension directly. How so? Well, in a prompt, you can simply @mention your desired extensions. So let's start with the Google Workspace extensions that allow us to call upon Gmail, Google Docs, or Google Drive. For example, let's say I was a writer with lots of files in my drive I needed to reference insights from. I could ask Gemini to summarize my last 2 blog posts. It then goes on to find the last 2 blog posts in my Google Drive and provides a summary for each one. And of course, direct links to the blogs are included as well. Next, let's use the flight and hotel booking extensions in unison to craft a vacation itinerary. I'll let Gemini know I'd like to fly to London for a week on November the 1st, and will ask for its help to find affordable flights and hotels, and of course, letting it know what my departure city will be. Clicking on the drop-down at the top, we can see that Gemini successfully queried Google Flights and Google Hotels to give us our response. It starts off by giving us details about our flights and then moves on to details about our hotels. And supposing I was more picky about my hotel, I could let it know that I prefer charming hotels located in central London. After which, Gemini goes on to update its list of hotels based on my preference. Now, clicking into a flight or hotel will still take you to Google's travel site, but using Gemini can be a great way to brainstorm a trip by sharing your preferences with Gemini to nail down the right options to book. Moving on, the Maps extension provides a great way to use location-based information in your conversations with Gemini. So for a trip to London, let's ask, how long will it take to walk from Buckingham Palace to Big Ben? Or what about from Big Ben to Trafalgar Square? And just like that, we get 2 easy-to-read maps of our query. And the good thing is here, I can then share or export this page to help me with my trip planning. Okay, the YouTube extension can be really handy, especially for problem solving. Rather than trudging through dozens of videos, you can let Gemini know what it is you'd like to accomplish, and it will give you the likely best video for your particular situation. Remember, being multimodal, Gemini actually understands most YouTube videos and can figure out which one is right for you. So let's say I spilled some wine on an expensive rug and need recommendation on straight to the point videos that can help me remove the stain. Well, we can bring Gemini to the rescue. We see that it first successfully calls upon the YouTube extension and then gives us a highly curated list of videos it thinks will be the best for our situation. Very, very handy. And very similar to the YouTube extension, the music extension allows you to have a conversation with Gemini to play, search, or even discover new songs on YouTube Music. I personally use Spotify, but this could be a pretty cool feature to find some of the gems that tend to get buried in one's library. For example, I'll let it know I like to hear a song that combines an orchestra, piano, and rock guitars. It then gives me some pretty awesome recommendations, and if I happen to be using YouTube Music, I'd easily be able to save the music to my library. This is a pretty cool and handy feature, and I can imagine it can be great for times where you're looking for the perfect track if, say, you're a music supervisor for a TV show. Okay, next, let's head over to the Gem Manager and take a look at how to use gems in Gemini. In a nutshell, gems are highly customized versions of Gemini that you can configure to be really good at a particular task or desired outcome. Or in other words, you can build your own AI expert for any topic you wish. This is akin to GPTs for anyone that uses ChatGPT. The Gem Manager is where you find the gems you've created or the ones pre-made by Google. Your most recently used gems will also appear in the left-hand navigation pane. Now, let's quickly take a pre-made gem for a test drive before making our own. Taking the learning coach for a spin, we can begin to uncover the science behind photosynthesis. Gemini then goes on to give us a lesson plan, which if we're good with, we can dive right into. And amazingly, it even throws in some quizzes in there to make sure you're learning in the best way. Now, let's make our own gem by heading back to Gem Manager and clicking New Gem. Our use case will be to build a research analyst that we can use to quickly get a summary of a company we're looking into. So we'll name it Research Analyst. Instructions is where all the magic happens, and you are encouraged to get as detailed as possible here to build your ultimate gem. For today though, we'll keep it short and I'll let it know that it's a research analyst at a leading business consultancy firm. When given the name of a company, its job is to summarize the company's latest financial results and any major news to provide a good overview of the company. The responses should be well structured and contain insightful commentary about the company in question. Once that's done, let's test it out in the preview pane by asking it to tell us about tech's current darling, NVIDIA. Gemini then goes on to give us very insightful commentary and analysis on NVIDIA with all the sources listed should we wish to further dig into things. Now, let's say I'm not the best at writing instructions for gems. I can easily click the Use Gemini to rewrite instruction buttons, and lo and behold, I get much more detailed and well-structured instructions to work with. And the good thing with these instructions is that I can now get really granular with what I'd like my gem to produce. Once you're happy with your gem, click Save, and then you're able to use your gem whenever you'd like. So for example, we can now quickly get analysis of Apple while barely lifting a finger. Gemini Advanced can also be accessed across many of Google's Workspace tools. This can be a great time saver and allows you to call on many of Gemini's functionalities without leaving the document, spreadsheet, or email you're actively working on. So in this section, I'm going to quickly show you some handy use cases for Gemini when working in Docs, Gmail, and Sheets. Though I will say some of the more advanced features, such as data analysis, will only be accessible directly on the Gemini webpage. Starting in Google Docs, I found Gemini to be a pretty handy collaborator and brainstormer. So aside from summarizing documents, another great use case in Docs is for helping you to plan things. Let's say I was at a company where my team had a new product launch coming up and we needed a bit of help running a well-structured cross-functional meeting for the launch. We could get Gemini to create a first draft of the meeting agenda. Gemini then gives us back a well-structured meeting agenda that includes placeholders for the date, time, location, ideal attendees, goals for the meeting, and of course the actual agenda. If we're happy with this, we can simply click Insert, and off to the races we go. What a time saver. Heading over to Google Sheets, I found Gemini is still a bit lacking in terms of summarizing and analyzing existing data. Though Copilot for Excel, Gemini's closest competitor in this context, is absolutely no better. But where Gemini in Sheets does do a decent job is providing starting points. So for example, opening up the Gemini window, we're greeted with a few useful suggested prompts. So let's ask it to create a table, and in this case, we'll ask it to compare approaches to new product development. We then get a very informative table listing product development approaches, description of what those approaches are, and of course the pros and cons for each approach. Really great information that would have taken hours just to summarize manually. Okay, let's head over to Gmail and say I wanted to find some quick information about Gemini's competitors, OpenAI, the makers of ChatGPT. I could then simply prompt Gemini to summarize my most recent emails from OpenAI. Gemini then scours my inbox to give me the latest summary of my emails from OpenAI. This feature could be a great time saver when you're just trying to collect information at a glance. Another handy Gmail use case is help with composing emails. Let's say you bit off more than you could chew during a semester. You could ask Gemini for help with writing an email to your beloved professor, letting them know you're withdrawing from their course. And just like that, we have a professional yet pretty emotionally compelling email. Now, some might say, why not just write this yourself? But to be honest, a lot of people struggle with writing heartfelt messages. And Gemini can be a great launching pad for those people to get their thoughts onto paper. Now, these examples just scratch the surface of what you can do with Gemini Advanced in Docs, Sheets, and Gmail. And if you'd like a more in-depth overview of Gemini in all of Google's Workspace tools, feel free to let me know in the comments down below. Okay, we've accomplished a lot today, and by this point, you're now well equipped to use Gemini Advanced like a pro. A few key things to remember. Be sure to verify Gemini's answers for anything you think is mission critical. Like any AI chatbot, Gemini is designed to provide an answer, not to always be correct. And all AI chatbots are currently known to hallucinate, meaning they can be very convincing even when serving up complete garbage. Yet, do try to have fun with these tools as they're being continuously updated and may be very different in the not too distant future as more innovations come to the forefront. Experimentation is the name of the game here. Also, building specialized gems can be a great time saver for repetitive or specialized tasks you do, so be sure to take advantage of that. And lastly, if you're uploading files to Gemini or linking to them from your drive, be mindful of their size. While Gemini Advanced can handle large files and inputs very well, it's still often better to break things up into more manageable tasks it can better comprehend and specialize in. I'd love to hear more about your experiences with Gemini Advanced in the comments down below. Thanks for watching and catch you in the next one.